A little bit about Cyrus Sahukar, who's, for all of you who don't know about Cyrus, he's a neurosurgeon and a gynecologist, and a part-time DJ and actor. Thank you so much for coming here again. Can we have the ceremonial unwrapping of the book and launch it in Mumbai?
Okay, Samit, you want to tell
No, you have to go practice.
Wicked weight. For postmodern superheroics, for sheer verbal energy and dazzle, Samit Basu doesn't so much push the envelope as fold it into an n-dimensional hyper-envelope, address it to your hind brain and mail it with a real gun. Clearly, Mr. Carey has been not taking his medication for a month. What are people who don't understand what that meant? But yes, there is a yes. But I don't want to get into that aspect of it. In the front, there's a nicer link by a gentleman called Ben Aronovich, who has written a Doctor Who series.
This is when you say, I don't know which doctor.
Yes, $350 million. This is you laugh, you will cry. I'm hoping not at the same time because there will be problems. You will gasp and you will demand a sequel. So Samit, this is outstanding. You've got an amazing book, and I think it's time you told us a little bit about it.
Before that, could you play the video thingy?
Yeah.
Samit, now we need to ask you questions. You can't turn this into a sleazy, dirty fest and all that. You can't do that. Okay, so Samit, I have to know how did you come up with this idea? There's so many wonderful things. You spent time writing this book. Where did it come from? How did it come about?
Okay, so can you guys hear me? Is this working?
Yeah. It isn't, but we can hear it.
It is a large room. Then I just abandon this thing and talk. Yeah. So after sort of spending 7 years writing this series of fantasy books, I decided I would write this very serious literary novel that the kind that Indian writers should write, which is young urban Indians going through their life crises and figuring out their role in the universe in big urban Indian cities. And except what happened after that was as I sort of started trying to throw a lasso around the aforementioned big urban Indian cities and a bit of Pakistan and London, I realized that the backdrop of this perceived, well, what we see of our country around us today is far crazier than any setting I could have imagined in a fantasy book, with your Bollywood and your IPL and your crazy religious parties and what have you. So to kind of match up to the setting, it seemed like, and essentially the book was going to be about the questions that everyone kind of faces through their 20s. I've recently escaped my 20s. So, and
Recently?
recently, Cyrus, very recently.
We have photographs of you building the pyramids, Samit.
But they weren't those pyramids. So anyway, Cyrus, so I figured that I would have to turn the volume up on these characters a bit, so to make sure that their decisions and the consequences of their decisions and indecisions and actions and inactions wouldn't be completely shallow and self-centered. Which is how from being a very straightforward literary novel, it kind of got bitten in the arm by a radioactive spider and turned into a superhero novel. And I was kind of thinking, okay, if I'm not doing fantasy, then why am I doing superheroes? Then I figured superheroes have never been more mainstream. What with Dark Knight being Oscar nominated, and everyone knows what a superhero is, even if they know fairly shady superheroes. But yeah, so that's essentially how this book came about. And would you grace us with a reading?
Before that, I want to ask you just a few questions, because the whole idea of superheroes in itself has so many different angles to it, right? There's one which is just basically people with superpowers. You have your Superman, you have your Spider-Man. I can't say Batman because he doesn't really have superpowers.
Well, money.
He has money. This is great. So you have superpowers like those. Then in India, right? Some people, they've gone by their entire careers, and they've always had godlike statuses and things like those. So in your book, what happens is these people, each one goes through and gets a superpower, not necessarily the one they want, but the one they need most or they most desire.
The one that they actually want, not the one that they think they want. So essentially what happens is there's this flight from Delhi to London, and after they get off it, everyone discovers that they have strange physical abilities that correspond to what they actually want in life. So the majority of people who got off that plane got a better handbag, or someone fall in love with them who they want.
So these are deep people on the flight.
Flat, it's a British Airways.
Their conflict is philosophical.
So flat abs and nice clothes and all.
Jimmy Choo Choo!
Yeah. So, but there were other people, like among the protagonists is an Air Force pilot who can now fly, or a guy who was, growing up and feeling frustrated because he didn't have the right connections and therefore couldn't get ahead in life. True. So he can now control the internet and all communications networks. And while this is useless in a superhero fight, it's a nice part to have in the real world. True. And the primary aspect of this was I really wanted to write a book of now.
Correct.
So to have a setting where people are watching heroes and the X-Men movies and these things happen to them and essentially they're going through whatever the crises are that normal people go through, right. Except that they also have this additional pressure that their things that happen to them actually affect the world. Correct. So
But also the whole visual of this. So first, the superheroes and people like those were these alpha people, in terms of they were all good, wanted to save the world. Over the years, what's happened is the superheroes have become almost more human. They're faulty, they've got a lot of mess ups, many a time they have huge problems with them, right? So your characters have they also evolved? They're more human in terms of that, right?
Well, they're fairly completely human,
right?
In the sense that, while say the completely perfect people work very well they have worked very well for the last 80 years of superhero fiction. It's not, by putting in sort of flawed and strange characters, it's not like I'm doing anything new because major superhero division has been going on since, the 80s with Alan Moore and Watchmen and several people even before that. I kind of came into this superhero thing from a very unusual angle as far as superheroes are concerned because there aren't any of the superhero trademarks like no costumes, no names, no girlfriend who doesn't understand that when he puts on his glasses he's a different guy, no super villain, etc., etc.
So you must have had some strange stuff happening and figuring out stuff when you were researching this book. What was your research plan like? Did you find some strange superheroes? Did you want to be a superhero as a child? Is this what it's all about, Samit?
Yes.
We all collected here because you would often run around Ranjan Park in a cave. I have seen photographs of you, and you should have worn somebody else's deodorant. If you hold that dot and think.
It was the same thing, like it was the leftover from a bangle. Would you read something?
Yes, I will. Now clearly. Okay guys, here goes. Open your books or I will walk them. Okay, here goes some. Page 109. Veer was a young boy, a very young boy in Lajpat Nagar. And it was one of those awful summer days. The stickiness of the weather and Shilpa gently combing her hair. As she looked at him and licked her lower lip, he then gently licked his upper lip as his lower lip had now been displaced, a minor injury that he had. For years he had been insulted and humiliated. As he weeped himself, he was always a sensitive child.
It's fiction.
As a youth, Rajinder would weep at butcher shops. But now, after that plane accident, he had an organ the size of a large guitar. Samit, really, this is...
I was thinking
adjust my trousers.
While you're adjusting your trousers, should I read another bit?
As Roop Kumar Rathod was on television, Rajinder broke through the left wall, pounding himself against Mr. Srimati. Yes, a man whose parents wanted a daughter. I think you should read, Samit. I think you should.
Thank you, Samit.
Such a beautiful book for children. And the inner conflict, we all understand now. Samit, you have clearly given me the, how to put it, the struggling version and chosen for yourself the high end.
You can have this, but I want that in that case because I don't have it memorized.
Right.
And you'd have read something entirely different from this. The one you read from that was much better. Okay, I'm actually going to read now, like you were before. This is the bit making suggestive hip movements with men twice her age.
And now, before we move forward, you have something to say?
Should I?
No, you shouldn't.
Okay, no.
Samit, we've been talking about superpowers and things like this. Everybody has been praising your book. So we figured after this, many of us won't be able to meet you, get a meeting or a conversation with you, we'll get Wayne. So
Sure.
what you don't realize is that while reading this book, I personally have also transformed and now have a wonderful lie detector sort of energy in me, where I can tell if you're lying or not. So while you were having your lemon iced tea, we mildly inserted a gentle small chip into a body part of yours, which will self-destruct. We're going to ask you just a few questions.